Hey folks, today I wanted to talk to you about the word transactional that comes up in Palales's Dimensions. When I read that as one of her five dimensions for the first time, I thought I knew what she was talking about because the word transactional is a word I think about a lot. But it turns out that transactional distance is a very different thing than what I had imagined. And we've already talked a little bit about transactional distance as this sort of term of art, this I don't know, logistical quantity within the realm of M-learning or e-learning pedagogy that's maybe supposed to account for this idea of the distance between people when you're sort of not in direct physical communication. And we've had that for a long time in education, whatever. Just think about books as being this original technology that creates a distance between the person writing them and the person reading them. And that same sort of thing happens when, say, like someone like me puts a course in a box with a bunch of material and then hands it off to a bunch of people to enact as students over the course of, several months or whatever. And that there's some inherent weaknesses to that as a model of working with each other. So that's what transactional distance is about. It's about having a way to try and quantify and keep track of strategies to overcome some of that distance between people. But when I originally heard the word transactional, I thought about something else, and something I think about a lot in terms of education, and is at the heart of one of my criticisms of a lot of the work that goes into e-learning and m-learning, and that is a transactional relationship. You can also think about it as an economic relationship, imagining that, sort of the course, school as a whole, education is built into these transactions where a school offers something and a student is willing to offer certain amounts of their time and their work in exchange for this credential or this grade, and there's certainly a whole lot of it around. And I think it rubbed me the wrong way for a long time before I really understood. Wow, there went a hawk. Very nice. Before I understood what it was that really bugged me about this constant insistence upon making sure that these transactional moments of education were clear in terms of like rubrics for grading, point breakdowns for every little thing. Hey, Meg. And what it is, and I didn't figure this out on my own. I was lucky enough to hear David Wiley speak at a conference I was at. So if you want to go look up one of his talks on YouTube about open education, I would highly recommend him as someone to listen to who's inspiring. But what he said, and I was like, yes, this is how I've always been feeling my whole life. This is why I became a teacher. He said, teaching isn't about a transactional relationship. That's not why it exists. That's not what it's here for. Learning and teaching, they are fundamentally acts of sharing, giving gifts to each other. And one of the things that's amazing about knowledge gifts is that they're the sort of gift where me giving it to you doesn't mean that I lose it myself. In fact, whatever that is becomes more valuable for being able to share it. And so at a moral fundamental level, that's what makes the enterprise worthwhile. That's why people get into it. And it's not just, sort of my personal idiosyncrasy, but this is sort of built into the idea of learning and education throughout culture for a very long time. And it's really one of the hallmarks of industrialization, standardization. You need to have things work consistently across lots of groups of people, at a large level, that we end up in this situation where we end up mistaking education as a transactional entity. And I'm keenly aware that within this class, I am forced into a much more transactional mode than I'm lucky enough to have as a teacher, sort of otherwise. And it also reminds me just how lucky I am as a teacher otherwise, to be able to have little structural ways to throw the focus off of the transaction a little bit. At the end of the day, there's always still a grade, and there's got to be some rationality, between me and someone I don't know yet, how that grade is going to be arrived at. But there are ways in which you can sort of lessen its presence. But one of the things that the paradigm of e-learning and m-learning make difficult, particularly in a class like this, it's set up as this advanced online program, this 8-week, put it in a box, someone else comes across the box and takes it at their own leisure, but that the idea behind it is at the end of this, that person will receive a certification of having been through it for the money they paid. It makes it much more difficult. It increases that transactional distance, of course, but it also increases the way in which this relationship is invented entirely in a transaction fashion. And so, I don't know, hopefully one of the things that we can do is, without giving you too much trouble, without taking you out of your existing life too much, we can find a way to get something more meaningful out of this than saying, yes, I've done these things. Hopefully we can meet each other a little bit, and that's why so much of the course is set up through discussions. But also, if there are ways to take these relationships further into something that feels like sharing, that feels like communication, to me, that's what I would want to get out of the course. And I know we're already sort of working at a disadvantage and that everyone's busy, and so I don't want to bother people too much with it. But maybe there's something else you're looking for out of this program where I might be able to help in a larger fashion. And other than that, I'll try and stay out of your way too much. And I guess I'll sign off here just by saying that a lot of the literature that you'll read about these topics will focus on the logistics of how to make things happen, and not examine some of the basic assumptions about the kind of thing that is being set up. And very often the thing that's being set up is being described and configured in a transactional fashion, which on its own tends to limit some of the great things that draw people to these worlds, that make them truly interested in what goes on in, say, like a classroom or something like that. The best possible thing that could happen there has already been written off, and that has a lot of effects. So anyway, that's probably enough for today. I hope you're all well, and I hope you're enjoying the class so far. I will talk to you again soon.